Hi, I'm Greg Levine, and this is the party line for July 8th, 2011. And by now, I'm sure you've seen or at least heard about the big article in this week's New York Magazine, Girl Talk with Jason Sudeikis. No, of course I am talking about Obama's original sin. It's Frank Rich's first piece for New York Magazine after leaving the New York Times. And Rich, freed from the shackles of a weekly column where he had to hit a certain low, I guess, word count, he has written pages and pages on what he calls Obama's original sin, which is the administration's failure to take to task the people who are responsible for America's worst financial crisis since the Great Depression, and in addition, Obama's allegiance with the sort of Robert Rubin types, Timothy Geithner, the Goldman Sachs sorts, Larry Summers, the people he brought into the administration to supposedly shepherd us out of this crisis, who are very much the people who embrace the system that put us in this crisis. And Rich explains that this is the sort of disaster, the mistake that will haunt Obama all the way through the 2012 election and could very well threaten Obama's re-election. In fact, Rich goes into a long digression about just how awful Mitt Romney is. I'll maybe get to that in a second. But a lot of reaction to this, mostly about how harsh, how hard, how tough on Obama Rich is being. Matt Taibbi in Rolling Stone called it a broadside. Basically agreed that Rich was being tough. Now, Taibbi is actually quoted in the Rich piece, so they're sort of, shall we say, on the same page. But what strikes me is, and I guess it's hard from my perspective because I and a lot of the people I work with at Firedog Lake have been at least this tough on Obama for honestly years now. So where Rich has come to here in the summer of 2011 doesn't seem so incredibly tough to me. But if you look back on where Rich was in 2008, perhaps it does seem harsh. I mean, in the run-up to the election, Rich was quite infatuated with candidate Obama. In fact, he had crawled so far up Obama's ass that a friend of mine, she used to call him Obama's man tampon. Actually, no offense, Frank, but you were very close. It actually made me like your columns a little less, and I've always liked reading Frank Rich, but it was getting a little ridiculous. Eventually, not too long after inauguration, Rich came to his senses and began to slowly criticize Obama, but I guess nothing to the extent that we now see him doing in the pages of New York Magazine. At least that's the general take. Now, Rich does rightfully again point out the sin of not investigating the financial crisis, not holding the banksters accountable, of aligning himself too much with the people who brought us to the brink. But then he goes on a long digression, and here is, I guess, the downside of not being chained to a short column length. Goes on a long piece about how bad Mitt Romney is, assuming that Mitt will be rocketed to the forefront of the Republican field, to the Republican nomination, because he is going to play on this idea that he is a sound financial manager versus Obama's reckless financial management, since honestly the economy is still in pretty crappy shape, and that of course Romney is full of it. Mitt Romney was not a good steward of the economy as governor of Massachusetts. He was, as pointed out by Rich, a lousy manager at Bain. He made his money basically by taking other people's jobs away, and that his flip-flops and his phoniness and his just general, I don't know, Republican win at all costs sort of ethic will put the country probably in a worse place than it would be under Obama. That's Rich's take, and there is where Rich gets off the I'm being tough on Obama track, because by doing so, by going off so long on Mitt Romney, he's basically playing right into the Obama team's defense strategy, which is that, yeah, things kind of suck, but they'd suck much more if you vote for the Republican next time. And while I'm not saying that wouldn't be true necessarily, although I feel less and less convinced of saying that because things are honestly bad, it disarms a lot of the people who want to push Obama a little bit more towards, I guess you could call it the left. Really, it's just like back to the center. Because basically it takes away your option. Now, the other option, of course, is stay home, and a lot of people are going to exercise that option, whether Team Obama wants to believe that or not. And if Obama loses in 2012, and I still don't think he will, but if he does, it won't be because people voted for Romney. It's because people won't show up to vote for Obama. And as bad as that might be for Obama, it's going to be especially bad, as I've pointed out before, for the Democrats in Congress and Democrats down the ticket even in state and local elections. And that, of course, to me, is one of the bigger sins of the Obama administration. But back to the point at hand, which is that while Rich thinks he's being tough on Obama, and I guess he is being tougher and is being tough compared to a lot of what even Taibbi calls the not-so-mainstream media. I don't think he's nearly tough enough because he doesn't point out that not only has Obama sort of allied himself with some of the forces the banks are, it's that this alliance has created the space for the Tea Party that he now uses as an excuse, and Rich to some extent uses an excuse for why nothing else is going to happen, why the economy can't be improved by the office of the president in the next 17, 18 months. And by not taking into account that, because Obama, and I've said this before, started the administration with more of a reassurance to the bankers, an embrace of the bailout with nothing asked for in return, instead of going out to the American people, to Main Street, and saying, I've got your back, and I'm going to make sure that the people responsible for this collapse, A, pay, and B, make sure the laws are put in place so that this can never happen again. Rather than that, Obama basically took the Bush bailout, ran with it, and let everyone just sort of, as we see now 2.5 years later, get off scot-free. So that creates this space. And in it, yes, with a lot of help from a lot of right-wingers, and a lot of corporatists, and a lot of money from people like the Koch brothers, this spawns a Tea Party with all of the nascent anger that turns into, like, something we're going to call a political movement. Remains to be seen in my mind. But, and thus is this obstacle that's pushing for no tax hikes and reduce the deficit and austerity and all of these things that are supposedly forcing Obama's hand and forcing him to deal with. Obama created this. If you were a conspiracy theorist, you would say, well, even if he didn't realize it, the powers that be, the corporate powers, did realize that they had him, because they gave him an awful lot of money in 2008, and that his actions were going to create the obstacle that were going to prevent the better angels of his nature from taking over. We're going to prevent him from rising to the occasion. Something I said that's what I voted for. I voted for the possibility that a smart man would rise to the occasion. And thus we have the anger, the obstacle, the excuse for Obama. And so Obama, to really be tough on him, is not being a leader. Obama is, and I grant you that Rich wrote this column before this week's bombshell about Social Security being on the table, about benefits being on the table. Something, of course, a lot of us here saw a very long time ago, but even if Rich didn't, to really be tough on the president, you've got to say that not only did you make this mistake, but you are the master of not only your undoing, but the undoing of the party, the Democratic Party that you supposedly lead, and the undoing of the social safety net that the Democrats built and have defended for over 2 generations. And that is the real sin, because that not only hurts Obama, not only hurts his electoral chances, that hurts people. Like all the people. Like all the people in America, except for 25 hedge fund managers. It really hurts. That's the sin. That's being tough. Those are the people that Obama's letting down. Not him, not his team, not his administration. America. And that's the party line. I'll see you next week.